Access your free language gifts of the month right now. Here's what you're getting this month. First, the Making a Phone Call cheat sheet. Want to be able to talk on the phone in your target language? Then this conversation cheat sheet will help you do just that. You'll learn all the basic phrases, questions, and answers you'll need when making a call. Second, want to know the learning hacks, motivational tips, and success strategies for learning a language in 2020? Then you'll want this exclusive 52-page ebook. Download it now for free before we take it down. Third, words and phrases for the dentist. Learn how to schedule a checkup, talk about a toothache, and much more with this 1-minute vocab lesson. Fourth, can you talk about your zodiac sign? Then this next 1-minute lesson is for you if you want to learn. You'll learn how to say the 12 signs in your target language. Fifth, the 32 words you'll need for language learning. Noun, verb, adjective, sentence, grammar. Can you say these in your target language? If not, you'll want this quick 1-minute lesson. Sixth, free audiobooks for our members only. Unlock our huge library of language learning audiobooks. Save them to your device and listen and learn. They're yours to keep forever. And finally, the deal of the month. If you want to finally master the language with lessons by real teachers and our complete language learning program, take the 12-month challenge and get 12 months of Premium or Premium Plus at up to 45% off. So, to get your gifts and language learning resources, click the link in the description below. Download them right now before they expire. Last time we talked about American supermarkets and how they're unique. This time we're going to look at how much it actually costs to live in New York City. When you think about America, perhaps one of the first things that might come to mind is the bright lights and the fast pace of the big city. For sure, in New York City, everyone who visits wants to go to the big tourist locations: Central Park, Times Square, the Statue of Liberty. But how much does it actually cost to live there? In this video, we're going to talk about the actual living costs of New York City. Let's start with the most basic thing you need to live in New York: an apartment. Without an apartment, you can't really say you live in New York City. But if you want to live in the city, you should be prepared to live in a small space. More than half of the apartments in New York City are 700 square feet or smaller. That's about 65 square meters. This could be for a studio apartment, which has no walls between the kitchen and the bedroom. Or it could be a one-bedroom apartment, which does have a separate bedroom. These kinds of places cost on average $1,890 or $2,100 respectively. So expect to pay a pretty high price if you want to live in the city. But keep in mind that a separate payment is required for heat and water in your apartment. For an average apartment, about 915 square feet in New York City, about $145 is required for utility bills. This covers heating, electricity, water, and garbage. For internet and phone, however, that's a totally separate payment. One of the best things about living in New York City is how convenient things are. If you walk down the street, you can quickly find a coffee shop, a bookstore, or a supermarket. Because of this, people who live there rarely have cars. It's quite expensive to keep one in the city. Instead, people use public transportation, like buses or the subway. For a monthly transit pass, you can expect to pay about $120. And if you want to use a taxi, fares start at $2.50. New York City is known for its wide variety of delicious restaurants. You can find food from all over the world. You can get anything from a food cart hot dog to an expensive steak dinner in New York City. Because of this wide variety, however, it's hard to determine a specific average for a meal. When living in New York City, you can imagine going to concerts, shows, baseball games, and so on. But the cost of these can get pretty pricey. If you want to see the latest film in New York City, you can expect to pay about $15 per ticket. If you want to do something a little more exciting and check out a Yankees baseball game, for example, it'll cost you about $50 a ticket. And if you want to check out Broadway and see one of the latest shows, you can expect to pay about a couple $100s for the best seats. There are lots of ways to determine the cost of living in New York City, but these are just a couple important aspects. So, how does New York City compare to big cities in your country? What are some things that are different? And what else would you like to know about American culture? Let us know in the comments. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about formal request patterns. These are a few different patterns that you can use when you're making formal requests. So these are great for business emails and other situations where you need to politely ask for something. I'm going to introduce the patterns and then I'm going to share a couple of examples as well. These are not the only patterns you can use, they're just a few ideas to help you get started. So let's take a look. Okay, first one, let's begin with the first one. You'll see some of these patterns today will use the word would at the beginning. Remember, we can use would as a common word to begin a request. So the first example includes this. Would you be so kind as to something? Another thing you'll see in many of these examples is the word to before kind of the extra information portion. This is a great hint that we should follow this part with some kind of verb. So to plus the infinitive form of a verb. We'll see a lot of examples of this. So the first one I've included, be so kind as to do something. So this is making a request, and this part, be so kind as to, shows us that the speaker is asking for the kindness of the listener or the reader in doing this action which we're about to describe. So let's look at an example of this. Would you be so kind as to send me the files? So here the verb we're using is send. As I said, we need to follow this to with the infinitive form of the verb send, and send me the files finishes the phrase. So would you be so kind as to send me the files? Means please send me the files, but it's a more formal sounding request. You're saying, it would be really nice of you if you would send me the files. It just means please send me the files, but it sounds more polite. Okay, let's look at another one, similar. Again, this one begins with would and ends with to in the introductory part of this pattern. However, here we have possible. Would it be possible to? This sentence, or this pattern rather, this is another way of saying, can you? Can you? But would it be possible to sounds much more formal than can you, or in some cases, can I? So let's look at an example of this one. Would it be possible to discuss this later? Would it be possible to discuss this later? Again, we have this to here, which shows us we should use the infinitive form of the verb, the regular form of the verb, to discuss this later. This part, would it be possible to, means can. So in other words, can we discuss this later? That's what this request is, but it sounds more formal. Would it be possible to discuss this later? We're connecting, if you're using this in speech, we're connecting these sounds. Would it be becomes would it be. Would it be possible? Would it be possible to discuss this later? Okay, so this is a good one to use for can situations. If you would use can in a regular request, you could try would it be possible to in a formal request. Okay, let's go along to the next one. May we ask you to? May we ask you to? This is a formal way of saying please. Please, please do this thing. So again, we're ending the pattern with to. Here we have this kind of confusing maybe, may we ask you? So you know that we use may to ask for permission to do something, but we're also using ask. So really, this combination makes a very soft request. Here I'm using we. This we could mean your group or your company or your department perhaps. So may we ask you to is kind of making yourself sound quite humble. So you're kind of lowering yourself and making a request from the other person. But again, this just means please, please. We're just using a more formal expression. Again, we're going to need to use the infinitive form here because we see to at the end of this introductory section. So let's look at an example. All right, may we ask you to submit the application by tomorrow? So again, to, our infinitive form, and here, may we ask you to submit the application by tomorrow? I've phrased this as a question, really. If you're using please, you could just say, please submit the application by tomorrow, period, not a question mark. Here, because we're being formal and polite, we say, may we ask you to submit the application by tomorrow. So may we ask you? It's like you're asking permission to ask for something from someone, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a very soft expression. But we're phrasing this as a question here. Again, this just means please submit the application by tomorrow. Okay, on to the next one. The next one is also a possibility expression. Do you think you would be able to? So here we see would. Do you think you would be able to? This means that in the future, you're asking about someone's future abilities, something that someone could do or would be able to do in the future. So, do you think you would be able to? Verb phrase here. We should follow this with the verb. Again, this part, do you think you would? This is maybe kind of softening it. Instead of would you be able to, it's do you think you would be able to? Here as well, a pronunciation point, this you would, we reduce this to you'd. Do you think you'd be able to? Do you think you'd be able to in speech? In writing, we can use the regular form, the non-reduced, the non-contracted form. Let's look at an example of how to use this. Do you think you would be able to have it ready by tomorrow? So this could be a document, for example. Do you think you would be able to have it ready by tomorrow? If we want to make this really, really simple, do you think you would be able to have it ready by tomorrow? Is, can you have it ready by tomorrow? That's really what this means. It's just a very formal way of saying that. Do you think you would be able to have it ready by tomorrow? So it's quite soft. It's like giving the other person a chance to say, no, I'm really busy, but it means can you? Can you have it ready by tomorrow? Do you think you would be able to have it ready by tomorrow? Quite nice. Okay, let's move along to the next one. Again, we're starting this with would, so another soft request pattern. Would you have some time available to? So this is asking about someone's schedule. Would you have some time available? To verb. We need to follow this with the verb. So let's look at the example. Would you have some time available to chat about this? So again, here's our to, our verb, to chat about this in other case. This just means, do you have time to chat about this? But this, would you have some time available in the future? In other words, or do you think that it would be possible to chat about this is another way to say that. So just a quite formal expression. Again, do you have time to chat, in other words. Okay, let's move along to the next one. For very kind of direct requests, but that are also formal, we can use a pattern like this. I would like to request. I would like to request. Here you notice there's no to at the end of this. So we should probably use a noun phrase here. There's something that you want to receive. So I would like to request something. Example, I would like to request your attendance at the meeting. I would like to request your attendance at the meeting. This is a formal sentence, which means please come to the meeting. Please come to the meeting. So I would like to request. You can imagine this as meaning I want, or I need, or please do this. I would like to request something. I would like to request a letter. I would like to request an application form, please. I would like to request your attendance at the meeting as well. So these mean I want something. But as I've got over here, try to avoid using some of these expressions in formal requests. I want and I need can sound very casual and too direct, especially in business situations. When you're making a request, I tend to avoid using these. If you're trying to give some supporting information for your request, maybe that's okay. So for example, I would like to request your attendance at the meeting because I need your approval for my project, for example. In that case, using I need could be okay. But if you make your request, your first kind of introduction to your request, using I want or I need, in some cases it might sound a little too direct. So please kind of be cautious. I tend to avoid these. Same thing with can I. Can I can sound a little bit casual sometimes. So you can kind of feel the situation and how close you are to the person you're speaking to or writing to. Okay. Let's move along to the next one. The next one is great in emails and written correspondence. So this is when you are maybe introducing yourself in an email, or you're introducing a request in an email. I am writing to request. This is very clear. I like to use this when I'm writing to someone that I don't know. I use this after I introduce myself. Hi, my name is Alicia. I'm from ABC company and I am writing to request. So this is, in other words, why am I writing to this person? So I'm writing to request a meeting. I'm writing to request this document, for example. I'm writing to request noun phrase. Here, I am writing to request a letter of recommendation. So in other words, this is the thing I want. I'm writing to request this thing. This is great to use in emails when there's some specific thing that you want and you want to describe it quickly and clearly. That's quite nice. All right, let's move along to the next one. When you need to ask permission to do something. So here you'll see we go back to this to at the end of the pattern, meaning we should use a verb here. May I or may we have permission to? In other words, is it okay to? But this is a formal way to ask permission. Example sentence. Example sentence. May I have permission to use your video in an article? So this is actually, I think this is a similar to a comment we received on the channel. May I have your permission to use your video in an article in this case? So in other words, is it okay if I use your video in an article? This is a much more formal, a much nicer way to ask if something is okay to do or not. All right, let's move on to the last pattern for today. Could you please? Could you please? Here you'll notice I've used you. You can change this. If you change this to like, could I please? It means you want something, like you want to receive something. Here you're asking for someone else to do something for you. Could you please do something? Example. Could you please let me know if this is acceptable? So this part, let me know if this is acceptable, means please let me know if this is okay. Acceptable means okay, really, but more formal. So could you please let me know if this is okay, is what this means. But you can change this, this you to whoever. Like, could he please give me the information? Or could I please meet with you later, for example. You can change this could you, depending on the situation, depending on who is giving and who is receiving information or a favor or so on. So this one, there's quite a lot of flexibility with this. So keep that in mind. Okay, so those are a few different patterns that you can use when you're making formal requests. So as I said, this is really good for business emails and formal situations. So I hope that you got some new ideas. Of course, if there's something else that you like to use in your formal requests, please let us know in the comments. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about how to make negative requests. By negative requests, I mean how to make requests for someone not to do something or to stop behavior. So I'm going to talk about some formal and some very casual examples of this. I hope that it's useful. Let's get started. All right, first one. The first one is probably the most useful and the easiest to remember. It's kind of polite a little bit, but it's also very clear and direct. The pattern is please don't verb. Please don't verb. So put any verb here in the regular, like the plain infinitive form. No change to the verb. Just please don't plus a regular verb. Example. Please don't take my pens. Please don't fire her. So in these examples, my verbs are take and fire. Please don't take my pens. Please don't fire her. So we can make very simple ones too, like please don't sit there, or please don't smoke, for example. These are very quick, short, direct, easy to understand requests to stop or not to do something. Okay, let's go to a very formal expression. You might see this on signs, or you might see this in official rules, in regulations, policies, for example. This is not something that is commonly used in everyday speech. Please refrain from verb ing. So we tend to use the ing form of the verb here. Please refrain from. Please refrain from. This refrain from means don't. Please don't. And instead of using the regular infinitive form of the verb here, we use the ing form here. So this is like the more formal version of the first pattern. Please don't verb. To make it more formal, please refrain from verb ing. Examples. Please refrain from feeding the pigeons. So here, feeding is in the ing form. Please refrain from feeding the pigeons. If I want to use another simpler example, like in this sentence I used please don't smoke, we could use that here. Please refrain from smoking. That's a very common one that you might see posted in restaurants, like on signs. Please refrain from smoking. Please refrain from ing form verb. A formal way to say don't do this behavior. Okay. Let's go on to 3 examples that are very casual. These are ones you'll use with kids. You'll hear among close friends, family members, and in some cases these are the easiest to use because they're so direct. First one, stop, verb plus ing. So this is very, very direct. There's no please, there's no could you, it's just stop. So this is a very direct request. Stop, verb ing. Examples. Stop hitting your sister. Hitting is the ing form. Stop hitting your sister. Stop looking at me. So these are very direct. So we can imagine these might be from like a parent to their child, or perhaps to a close friend, for example. So these are used in situations where we're very close to the listener. Stop ing in the verb form. Okay, let's go to another one. Don't plus a verb. Sometimes if the verb is very clear, if the action is very clear, we drop the verb and we extend this don't sound. So let's look at some examples with a verb first. Don't plus a verb. It's just like this, please don't verb, but even more direct, more casual. Don't put your elbows on the table. So elbows, remember this part of your body, and putting it on a table, like at a dinner table, for example, is considered rude. So don't put your elbows on the table. Don't plus our verb and some extra information here. Don't put your elbows on the table. Don't chew with your mouth open. So chewing is the action, this action of your mouth, and chewing with your mouth open instead of closing your mouth as you chew is also considered rude. So these are a couple quick maybe reminders from a mother or father or other parent figure. Don't put your elbows on the table. Don't chew with your mouth open. Don't plus a verb. So you might hear, especially young kids and kind of adults who are having a little bit of fun with language, you might hear the verb get dropped. So a great example would be like if a kid is fighting with their brother or sister and the kid is getting punched, like there's someone like that's hitting the kid might just say, don't. So because the action they want to stop is quite clear, like don't hit me is what the speaker, the little kid, means. But they drop the verb because it's very clear. The unpleasant action is very, very clear. In those cases, you might hear speakers drop the verb completely. Don't, when it's very clear we know which action we don't want. So you might hear that. In lots of cases, though, we do include the verb. Okay, let's go to another one now, a pair. Stop it and stop that. Stop it and stop that. So here the difference is it and that. This just depends on the speaker's feeling, really. Stop it means stop the behavior. Stop that also means stop the behavior. Stop that is probably used more when we want to point out a behavior a little bit removed from us. So if I'm watching bad behavior across the room, I could say, stop that, stop that. I could say stop it as well if I want to. It just kind of depends on the speaker's mood a little bit. So stop it or stop that are quick commands, again, often from parents, to mean stop that behavior. So stop that behavior, stop it, or stop that. So you can use both of those. Maybe a question some of you might have, stop this, Stop this, we don't use that one very much. Stop, you could say stop this car, for example. If you want to talk about an object or something that is moving, that you want to stop moving, you could say stop this car or stop this bus, for example. But when you're talking about behavior, we don't use stop this. We say stop that or stop it. Interesting point. Okay, let's go along to a very casual, kind of more common in the last maybe 10 to 15 years, I would imagine. I'm not sure specifically, but this is one we see a lot on the internet these days and a lot used among young people. Could you not? Plus maybe do that. Sometimes this is dropped. So this is very similar to don't, but what makes this interesting is it's phrased as a polite expression. Could you is used in polite requests. Here we're using not though. So could you not do something? Could you not do that? This is actually not used in formal situations. Yes, we use could and you here, making us think, oh, well, maybe it's formal, but this is actually a very casual expression. Could you not do that? We use this with that sort of intonation. Could you not do that? We use it with close friends only. So, examples. Could you not post such embarrassing pictures of me online? So, this is used with someone that we're quite close to. We make kind of a direct and slightly sarcastic, maybe, request sometimes to people. So again, as I talked about with don't, if the action is very clear, we can drop this whole part of the sentence and just keep could you not. So if, for example, maybe a close friend is singing really, really loudly in my ear, I could say, could you not? Or I could say, could you not do that? Which means please stop, please stop. So this is kind of an interesting pattern. It sounds kind of formal. It seems like it could be formal, but it's not actually. It's quite casual. Okay, let's go on to the last one for today. This one is a formal expression. If you could please not verb, we would appreciate it. If you could please not verb, we would appreciate it. So again, this might come from maybe a service staff, or you might see this on a sign in a restaurant, or perhaps at like, I don't know, some other kind of gathering place where lots of people visit. So if you could please not, regular verb form, we would appreciate it. So a formal expression at the beginning and at the end. So example, if you could please not feed the animals at the zoo, we would appreciate it. So here's my verb, feed the animals at the zoo. I have an object here. We would appreciate it. Or if you could please not smoke, we would appreciate it. So this is a formal request not to do something, and we include an appreciation expression too. So this is another nice formal expression you can use. If you forget though, this one is maybe the easiest to remember. It's good in polite situations, good in casual situations. Please don't verb. Pretty simple. So I hope that this was useful for you. Of course, if you have some other patterns that you know of, or if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know in the comment section. Let's begin with the basic definition of this verb. The basic definition of the verb to put is to place something in a location. Examples. Put your bag over there. Don't put your feet on the sofa. Let's look at some conjugations for this verb now. Present, put, puts. Past, put. Past participle, put. Progressive, putting. Let's talk about some additional meanings for the verb to put. The first one is to write, to write. Examples. Put your name on this line. She put her name on the list. So when we say put in this way, we refer to writing. So you're adding some information to a written document or a typed document as well. So it can mean to write or like to type information. So put your name on this line means like write your name or type your name on this line. In the second example sentence, she put her name on the list. It means the same thing. She wrote her name on a list, or she added her name to a list in some way. It means writing information. Okay, let's go on to the second additional meaning. The second additional meaning is to use words to express something. To use words to express something. Examples. How should I put this? You're putting it quite simply. So we can replace the word put with express, like, how should I express this in the first example sentence? But we use put because put sounds much less formal than express. How should I express this? It sounds way too formal, way too polite. Instead, we say, how should I put this? We use that expression when we're not quite sure how to say something, like we're maybe talking about a sensitive topic and we don't know the correct words to use, or it's difficult to explain. You can say, how should I put this? In the second example sentence, you're putting it quite simply. It means you're expressing things quite simply. So maybe it's a complex situation, but the listener is explaining things or expressing things maybe too simply. So the speaker in this case could say, you're putting it quite simply. Okay, let's go on to the third meaning. The third meaning is rather open and kind of vague, which is to cause to be in a situation. To cause to be in a situation. Let's look at some examples. This change puts the whole company at risk. Your terrible driving puts us all in danger. So in these examples, we see put is used to refer to a situation that some group of people or some person is caused to be in. So in the first example sentence, this change puts the whole company at risk. This change causes the whole company to be at risk, in a situation of risk, in a condition of risk. We use put to refer to that, to refer to being caused to be in the situation of risk. The second example sentence is the same. Your terrible driving, this is the reason why the people are in danger in this example sentence. Your terrible driving puts us all in danger. Your terrible driving causes us all to be in a condition of danger. It's very clumsy, but we use the verb put to make this quite short and easy to say. Your terrible driving puts us all in danger. Okay. There are so many variations, so many phrasal verbs to use with put. Yeah, so check a dictionary for more. These are just a few I'm going to introduce, but check a dictionary for this. The first variation for the verb put is put aside, to put aside. So to put aside means to stop thinking about something, to cease or to pause an activity while you do something else. Examples. Put aside your worries and relax for a day. I put my phone aside and tried to focus on my work. So in both of these example sentences, we see that one thing is kind of being moved away from the focus. So for example, in the first example sentence, put aside your worries. It means like stop thinking about your worries. Like put those to the side in your mind. Don't think about those things for a while. So in the second example sentence, I'm talking about my phone, where I'm saying I can literally put my phone aside, put my phone to the side of the thing I'm doing and focus on my work. I put my phone aside. So we can use this to talk about a concept in our minds or to talk about a physical object as well. Okay, let's go on to the next variation. So the next variation is to put someone down. It means to disrespect someone or to make fun of someone, to make them feel bad about themselves. Some examples. Don't put down your classmates, it's rude. His boss keeps putting him down in front of his coworkers. So in both of these examples, we see situations where one person is being disrespected by another person. So don't put down your classmates, it's rude. So in this case, the listener is maybe a kid in school who is disrespectful to his or her classmates. So a parent or a teacher might say, don't put down, meaning don't disrespect your classmates. Don't be mean to your classmates. Don't make fun of your classmates. So, be kind to them, in other words. Don't put down your classmates. You could also say, don't put your classmates down if you like. That's fine too. In the second example sentence, we see a work situation, like his boss always puts him down in front of his coworkers, means the boss disrespects this person in front of his coworkers. So it's a disrespectful situation. Okay, but one point about this, the expression to put someone down refers to disrespect with regard to humans. However, when talking about animals, like we had to put the cat down or we had to put the dog down, it means usually due to some serious sickness or some serious injury or illness, the owners of the pet, usually a pet or the animal, decide that the pet should have doctor-assisted death. So to put down an animal means to choose to allow the animal to die peacefully instead of suffering. So we use that expression. I had to put my cat down. This is a much more soft expression than the doctor killed my cat, which is essentially what happens. But it's because of some kind of suffering or some kind of illness or injury the owner wants to prevent. We use the expression to put an animal down in those cases. We do not use this for people. We don't say, I had to put my brother down. Though we do actually have an expression for babies, which we use when we put babies to bed. Like, I'm going to put down the baby for bed. We do have that, but please be cautious of the differences between animals and humans with this expression. To put someone down has very different meanings. Okay, let's go on to the next variation, which is to put up with. To put up with means to tolerate something. Examples. I don't want to put up with this crazy schedule anymore. Don't put up with their bad behavior. In these examples, put up with refers to tolerating or being able to stand something or continuing to live with something. In the first example sentence, I can't put up with this crazy schedule anymore means I don't want to live with this crazy schedule anymore. I can't stand it. I don't want to do it anymore. In the second example sentence, don't put up with their bad behavior. It means don't tolerate their bad behavior. So put up with something means like to continue living with something. And we often see it in the negative form, as in don't put up with something. Okay, so those are a few new ways, I hope, to use the verb put. I hope that you found something new. And as I said, there are a lot of phrasal verbs that can be used with put, so please check a dictionary if you'd like to see some more. How to improve your language and speak more through preparation. Do you think it's possible to speak more of your target language by preparing lines ahead of time? Today you're going to learn 1. Why you should prepare for conversations ahead of time, and 2. How you can prepare for conversations in your target language. If you've always wanted to speak more of your target language but didn't know how, this tactic will give you more to talk about. How to improve your language and speak more through preparation. Okay, let's get into part 1. Why you should prepare for conversations ahead of time. If you're a beginner, you can probably relate to this. When it comes to speaking, you tend to run out of things to say. And that's because you don't know enough of the language to express yourself. And that's where preparation comes in. You may think that the conversations we have in our daily lives are spontaneous, that you can't prepare for them. You're right to an extent. But imagine meeting someone for the first time. Both of you will go through some common questions and phrases, like, what's your name? My name is, where are you from? And how long have you been studying the language? As a language learner, you'll have these kinds of conversations with almost every native you meet, guaranteed. They'll always ask you about how long and how you've been learning. And even with your friends, some conversations start the same way. For example, you say things like, hey, how are you? How are things? How was your weekend? My weekend was good, and you? Let's say you went to a restaurant this weekend, and now you want to talk about it. Well, that allows you to prepare and learn some phrases like, I went to a restaurant. The restaurant had delicious food. The point is, some questions and phrases come up often in conversations, so it makes total sense to master them ahead of time. And you can always plan ahead and prepare for things you want to talk about. When it comes time to speak, you know what to say, how to respond, and you don't run out of talking points as quickly. So, how do you prepare? Let's jump into part 2. The first thing you can do to prepare is check out our 25 questions you need to know lesson series. This series is specifically designed to help you with the first-time conversations you'll have with native speakers. You'll learn the 25 most common questions and answers used in conversations. Just listen to the lessons, repeat out loud, then put what you learned to use. These will serve as talking points so you can keep your conversations going. Number 2, print out the curriculum for this lesson series so you can review all of the lessons at once. The curriculum gives you the lines and vocabulary used in all lessons up front, so you can use this to review key questions and responses. This will allow you to control conversations and ask questions instead of just having the native speaker ask you all the questions. In other words, you'll sound like a fluid, confident, and experienced speaker. Number 3, check out our printable conversation cheat sheets. This is another free resource that gives you lines and words for all kinds of topics. For example, talking about hobbies, your family, and much more. Number 4, ask yourself, what do you want to talk about? Come up with some topics, and for each topic, write out potential questions and phrases that would come up in a conversation. For example, if you want to talk about restaurants, you can have lines like, my favorite restaurant is, my favorite food is, what's your favorite restaurant? And then run these lines through a translation app. It won't be perfect, but it'll give you lines to use that you can correct later. Number 5, look for lessons that are related to your topics with our lesson library. On our site, we have hundreds of lessons that teach you conversations. So if you're looking for lessons related to restaurants and food, you'll get all kinds of conversations that you can use for yourself. And number 6, if you're a Premium Plus user, get in touch with your teacher via My Teacher and try a conversation with them. They'll help you every step of the way, correct your writing, and give you the lines to use in a conversation. That way, you can prepare ahead of time, and when it comes time to speak, you'll know what to say. All right, everyone, here's a challenge for you. Yes, everyone watching this. Record a 30-second to 1-minute video or audio clip. Tell us, what's your language learning goal for 2020? If you do, you'll win a 1-month Premium Plus subscription. To submit, click on the link in the description. Sign up for your free lifetime account. Then fill out the form. Attach the audio or video file and press submit. We may feature you in next month's episode, so a lot of learners will see you and your progress and will hopefully get inspired to improve and master the language. To submit a recording, click the link in the description and follow the instructions on the page. So thank you for watching this episode of Monthly Review. Next time, we'll talk about how to start conversations, talking points for language learners. Most people don't like to hear this, but consistent, hard work is one of the biggest factors in your language learning success. The course or method you choose makes a difference too. But at the end of the day, you ride or die by the work you put in. The quantity of time spent studying language doesn't necessarily determine the quality of your study. Spending 3 hours a day watching movies doesn't help you learn much if you're not actively engaging with the language. In this video, we'll talk about 3 ways to actively engage your mind while studying a new language. Number 1, think of your brain as a muscle. You're probably familiar with the phrase, feel the burn, or maybe no pain, no gain. If you've been to your local gym recently, there's a chance you might have heard one of these phrases or seen them plastered on a wall. There's an idea in the world of sports and workouts that the discomfort you feel when running, pumping iron, or doing some other physical activity is what brings results. During a healthy workout, the muscles of the body are affected at a microscopic level. The discomfort you feel is your muscles being pushed to their limit. It's the limit pushing that strengthens your muscles so that over time, your performance increases. In the context of language learning, it's helpful to think of your brain as a muscle. Just as we need to push our physical limits when exercising, we also need to push our mental limits when learning a foreign language. Have you ever studied or practiced your target language in a way that left you tired or even exhausted? If so, you've experienced what it's like to push your brain out of its linguistic comfort zone. Number 2, practice active listening. One of the easiest ways to push your language skills is to practice active listening. Active listening is when you listen to someone speaking your target language and you do your best to understand what you hear. The best way to accomplish this is by using audio that you can't completely understand on the first listen. Preferably, you want to use audio that has subtitles or transcripts for you to double-check your understanding after you listen to it. You can use movies, YouTube clips, or even our language program, which has very useful transcripts for each lesson. During a practice session, you should listen to the audio several times. The first time around, it's okay if little to no words stick out to you. Simply make a mental note of any words or sounds you recognize. The second time you listen, you're likely to recognize a little more than you did the previous time. Expect similar results with your third or even fourth time listening. After you've hit the ceiling of words you can decipher, go ahead and look at the language subtitles or transcripts. Listen to the audio again, reading along with the text. Odds are that you will see words in the text you know, but didn't hear correctly. You're also likely to encounter words that are new to you completely. As you play back the audio and read along, try to guess what these words mean from the context of the words around them. After you've read along a couple times, feel free to look up the remaining unfamiliar words in a dictionary or translator app. This active listening exercise routine is a great way to increase your listening and comprehension skills while picking up some new vocabulary along the way. It also allows you to learn new words in context, which itself is a powerful method to help you retain what you study. Number 3, practicing with native speakers. Practicing with native speakers is the epitome of pushing your language skills. Using what you know to communicate in real time is where the rubber really meets the road. Try to connect with a native speaker on a weekly basis. Regularity is what makes the difference when you're learning a foreign language. If you live in a large metropolitan area, then there's a significant chance that there are some local native speakers nearby. Try hitting up a local language exchange or meetup group to make the necessary connections. If you're unable to find a practice partner locally, then you can take your search online. There are a number of sites out there that help you find and connect with other language learners from around the world. There are tons of language learners around the world who have learned or are learning a second language. You're likely to find someone who knows your target language and is looking to improve their own language skills as well. Learning a new language isn't always easy, but it's the discomfort that comes with pushing your ability in the language that produces results in your studies. Don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. The further away you get from your native language, the closer you'll be to attaining fluency. Also remember that language learning is in every way a lot like an adventure. There will be fun times and times when it feels like you're swimming up the proverbial stream. It's by keeping your head up long enough through these ups and downs that you will experience the priceless satisfaction that comes from learning a foreign language. Just keep moving forward. Let's be honest, it's difficult to learn a new language. If you're new to a language, it's going to take consistent and concentrated effort to start using the language fluently. However, this fact shouldn't discourage you. While learning a new language is hard, it's far from impossible. In this video, we'll outline 5 tips you can use to jumpstart your language learning. Follow these pointers to learn your target language in a way that is efficient and effective. Number 1, limit your native language use when practicing. The idea here is that when you practice with native speakers, you do your best to refrain from using your native language. This is generally harder the less you know, but if you can manage to stick to this rule, you'll reap some huge rewards. If you commit to a no native language practice session, it's not going to be easy. Most likely, there will be some frustrating, if not painstakingly difficult moments where you either have trouble understanding the person you're talking to, or you can't say what you want to say. It's precisely in these moments that your language learning muscles are built up to capacity. The process really isn't all that different from working out in the gym. Just replace the physical burn of lifting weights for the mental burn of thinking in a new language. In the end, if there's no pain, there's no gain. Obviously, this no native language rule doesn't have to be written in stone. There are times when it's more beneficial to break out of the target language box and have something explained to you in your native language. However, this should definitely be the exception rather than the standard. Number 2, have set times to practice speaking throughout the week. Now that we've discussed a good way to practice speaking, let's delve a bit into when to speak. One of the best commitments you can keep while learning a new language is to set aside specific times to practice speaking the language on a weekly basis. Ideally, these speaking sessions are on set days at specific times and form part of your weekly routine. If you don't make it a point to set aside specific practice times, you run the risk of your language practice falling through the cracks of your busy schedule. I recommend writing down your practice times and hanging it somewhere you can always see it. You could also input the times into your phone and set an alarm. The point is to remind yourself of your commitment every day so that it doesn't fall by the wayside. Number 3, get picky about vocabulary. Whether you practice with a podcast, a friend at a coffee shop, or a teacher, you're going to run into a flood of new and unfamiliar vocabulary. Despite your best efforts, it's unlikely that you'll be able to pin down every new word or phrase you hear and study it later. Thus, you should pick and choose which new words you focus on. The defining quality of each new word you learn should be its practicality. The more useful a word or phrase is to you in a conversation, the more important it is that you learn it. Don't feel like you have to cram the entirety of your target language into 1 week of study. Take it one step at a time. A few practical words here, some more there. Before you know it, you'll see your vocabulary improve. Number 4, write and practice short monologues. This tip can be a lot of fun. Begin by selecting a topic you enjoy discussing. Then, simply write out a short monologue or speech on the subject in your target language. The first thing you'll notice while doing this will likely be the holes in your grammar and vocabulary. But when you try to write out your thoughts in a foreign language, you might inevitably hit roadblocks. You might not be able to think of a word or know how to formulate a specific idea or opinion yet. This can be great because these holes are the exact areas where you should focus your studies. You can bring up these problem areas in your next lesson or browse through your favorite language course or textbook in order to find the answer. The constant process of finding these language holes and filling them is what keeps you moving along the path to fluency. Once you finish your short text, it's a great idea to practice reciting it or even memorizing it. The memorization will help you internalize the new grammar and vocabulary you've learned. Reciting it will get your tongue and mouth used to the sounds. Number 5. Keep an up-to-date list on what you want to learn. Throughout your studies, you should always have a sort of language shopping list. As you practice and study, you will most likely come across things you'd like to be able to say, but don't know how to yet, especially if you follow our previous tip. Write this wish list down. It's one thing to learn the vocabulary you pick up via a course or podcast, both of which are great. It's a bit different when your vocabulary gets personal. Learn the words that matter to you, either because they're practical or because you simply find them interesting. The more relevant the vocabulary, the more likely you are to retain it. Some people might tell you it's impossible to learn a new language for whatever reason, but it's important to remember that the way you study and engage with a language greatly affects how quickly or effectively you learn it. Want to speed up your language learning? Take your very first lesson with us. You'll start speaking in minutes and master real conversations. Sign up for your free lifetime account. Just click the link in the description.